Welcome to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the Hesselson Studio on beautiful Marcus Street in Corning. And needless to say, we have a very busy morning because we finally, in the state of New York, have a budget. A bad budget, but we have a budget. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. We're going to be speaking with Jim Meskimen. The name might not pop in your head right away, but when you see him, you will recognize him instantly. He's an actor, and it actually has a website called JimWorkingActor.com. He's been in just about everything, and you'll get to hear a little bit from him. That's something that we recorded a little while ago. As a matter of fact, the studio looked just a little bit different, but I realized originally I was hoping to get someone in on the budget. But the lateness, though not as late as normal, it wasn't a 2 a.m. vote like typical. It was just schedule-wise would not work. But don't worry, we'll take care of that in the next week or two. We'll have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and many others in to talk about the budget because sadly, we never really, and this is in Albany as well, we never really got to see what was in the budget until, Monday at 8? So sadly, a lot of the people that voted on it were learning about it about the same time we were. So there's still a lot of things to unfold. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on. I wanted to highlight on tomorrow's program, we're going to be talking with Lisa Illig-Homan. She is running for Corning City Council, so she's going to be our guest tomorrow right around 7:20. So make sure you tune in for that. And if you have any questions for her, there is our contact information. I'd also like to thank everybody who is a part of a charitable organization who have been sending in their public service announcements when they're having their chicken barbecue or when they're having their event. We'll be getting to those a little bit later on as well because I have quite a backlog to promote. And I know that you're always looking for something to do and always looking to help our community and our charitable organizations. So I will bring those to you in just a little bit. While I have a moment, we'll take that off the screen. Let's talk about the budget. The lack of transparency has meant that now we are reading articles and finding out what's in the budget essentially in real time after it was voted on. I like how the New York Post put it, and I thought this was really good because we talked about it quite a bit the last couple of weeks that Governor Hochul enjoyed, in a way, these extensions, saying, well, we don't want to rush this. We want to get this right. But as the New York Post put it, Hochul promised a late, not bad budget, but gave us both. And that is very, very accurate. We're going to talk about the bail reform aspect to it. I know there's some more teeth in there to go after the illegal weed stores. So some of those things we'll be talking about in just a little bit. But a late budget beats a bad one, says the New York Post. Governor Hochul argued that for weeks, a month. But then she delivered both, a late one and a bad one. Did you know the budget, I think we talked about it yesterday, $229 billion budget for the state of New York. That's 32% more than just 4 years ago. Some of the biggest problems, Albany doesn't have the cash to sustain such outrageous spending. And this is what we keep belaboring here on the program. You know, people are leaving in droves, the mass exodus from New York. Well, who's making up those monies? It's us, the people that decide to stay here, because they're not cutting back. That's clear with a $229 billion budget. They're using, it says here, it's instead using, to pay for some of this, $1 billion from last year and expiring federal pandemic aid as one-shots. Money we're not going to have going forward. That's once we spend it, it's gone. Settling counties, and this is going to be something we'll be talking about with a lot of guests on the program. Counties, this Medicaid costs that we cannot afford. They're saddling us with the Medicaid costs that we just cannot afford, and we will talk about that in just a little bit. They're going after New York City businesses with $1.1 billion more in payroll taxes for the transit system. I know that's a little more citywide, but we've got to talk about the overall budget. And they're also going for $165 million from City Hall in New York City. Despite all that, it still leaves a hole of up to $20 billion for the upcoming years that we'll be paying for. The budget weakens the state's financial footing, risking massive program cuts or economically harmful tax increases. And I think what we'll ultimately end up seeing is tax increases. I don't see them cutting government programs. That's from Citizens Budget Commission head Andrew Rain. Now, you know what? We've got even more on this. It's going to upset you early on in the morning, get you going right at the top of the 7 o'clock hour. But I do have to take a short break, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We're talking about the New York State budget, and I highlighted that we were going to talk about Medicaid. This is going to really hurt our counties throughout the state. What they're doing is smashing the cap on local government's share of costs. Basically, what this is saying is, if you want to just boil it down, it imposes the equivalent of property tax hikes of 7% to as much as 14%. Yes, property tax hikes. So, again, not to sound like a broken record, but when we wonder why so many people are leaving in droves, and then we see budgets like this, it is no surprise. Now, you and I knew the answers to why people were leaving in droves anyway. It's the taxes. It's the safety issue and bail reform, which we'll get to in just a moment. But New York already spends more on Medicaid than any other state except California, but which has twice the population, California. And Albany is racing to be number one to beat out California, as we always do. The government's plan sought to hike outlays at least 18% over the next 3 years. What else is so urgent that required so much cash? Again, if you're just joining us, $229 billion New York State budget. That's with a B. Billions more for schools, even with falling enrollment and no evidence more money will improve learning. Throwing more money at the problem has not fixed the problem with our school district. $300 million for an upstate computer chip maker. And here we go, something we talked about. Bigger handouts for the film and TV industry. I guess $420 million a year wasn't enough. They figured that wasn't enough of an incentive for Hollywood. So Hochul and Albany upped it 66%. Yes, we are giving away to Hollywood $700 million to attract them to film here. The deal also inflicts needless pain in non-budget areas. Like, get ready for this. I know, I'm almost giddy because we predicted all this stuff, and then you say, wait, it's horrible. So I shouldn't be, I'm not happy about this. This is horrible, but this is what we get when we keep voting the same people in over and over. Banning gas hookups in new buildings. So you can say goodbye to your gas stoves, the gas heat. So much damage is going to be done in this state in the name of green energy policies. It's also going to hurt job seekers and employers because we have a hike in minimum wage. Now, I saw in my email after it passed, or right around the time it was supposed to pass, Raise Up New York, which is a group I've been mentioning a lot. I'm on their email list for some reason. They were the ones that said $17 an hour. We don't want your pennies. Well, now they're saying that Governor Hochul disrespected workers in New York because they did not give them a living wage. That's different than a minimum wage. They want minimum wage to be a living wage. One last thing on the budget, and we'll talk about what they had to say about the minimum wage. I thought the New York Post had a really great line. No wonder it was late. The budget was over a month late. No wonder it was late. It takes a lot of time to do so much damage. Sad. It's sad but true. But yes, so this Raise Up New York group, pardon me, said Governor Hochul has turned her back on working New Yorkers who demand a living wage. While we are encouraged New York will become the 19th state to index their minimum wage to inflation, this budget completely ignores the record inflation and cost of living crisis that have been crushing working families for the past 5 years. A $17 minimum wage will not give working families the living wage needed to afford basic necessities. Now, we know that minimum wage was supposed to be essentially for new employees, for people, it wasn't supposed to be a living wage is what I'm trying to get to. But that is what so many on the far left and so many in Albany are pushing for, a living wage. So now $17 minimum wage is not enough. I would ask, especially if you are a small business, what is that going to do for you? If you are thinking about hiring on another employee, you probably are, especially if we went up to $21.25. That's what they want, $21.25. But now it's at $17. You may not only not be able to hire somebody, you could be looking at laying off employees. And let's say you bump up somebody to that $17 an hour, or hire someone on new for $17 an hour. What about the person that's been working with you 5, 6 years and they're just at $17 now? This causes so much trouble. It makes more people, number one, not open small businesses. Number two, not come from out of state to open businesses. We are making boneheaded decision after boneheaded decision, and we continue to wonder why the economy is so poor and people are leaving in the mass exodus. Let's take another break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. We're back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. I made an executive decision during the break. I believe we have so much to talk about, and that interview was pre-recorded with Jim Meskimen, so I think we'll put that off for another day. I just want to get to all of these topics. It's a great interview, and I will play it soon, but it was pre-recorded. It was nothing of time-sensitive nature, and right now with the budget passing, I think we should continue to talk about that because we also have some federal issues as well. But we'll be back tomorrow with our M.A. Neal Financial Services interview section of the program when Lisa Illig-Homan joins us. She's running for Corning City Council. I look forward to talking with her. We've got some guests lined up for Friday, of course, and next week we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later on. I see the big news everywhere is the Hollywood strike. The nice thing about Frankly Speaking is you don't have to worry about that. They're saying, oh, your favorite shows could go away. No, your favorite shows right here every weekday morning starting at 7 a.m. All right, that's probably enough of the contact information, but please, I'd love to have you weigh in on the budget. What we're learning, and sadly, yes, we are learning. I know it passed, but we got the text of it, and not even the final text, on Monday at 8 o'clock. So we really, as the lack of transparency in Albany normally goes, we are learning as the $229 billion budget passes. We will learn what's in it after the fact. Now, we had the bail reform. They're calling it rollback. I see that there's some in the media, as is typical, trying to defend that, oh, well, it's something. It doesn't go far enough. And I think Governor Hochul secretly knows it doesn't go far enough. But she wanted to have something there because Lee Zeldin did so well against her that it scared her. And she knows it was because he ran on safety. People are leaving as it is because of the high taxes and basically making it impossible to live here. But then you add on top of that, now you don't even feel safe. You're not even sure if you can live here because of safety. Now, again, a lot of these articles trying to defend her, trying to defend the supermajority, the Democrats in Albany. But it says there is going to be funding to address the migrant crisis. I know in the city that's a major issue, and Mayor Adams in New York City has been attacking Greg Abbott, the Texas governor, where the Texas governor is saying, hey, this is a problem at the border, which we may actually get to in a little bit as Biden's going to send, looks like anyway, 1,500 U.S. troops to the Mexican border as Title 42 is set to expire. Now, one of Governor Hochul's big issues that she was trying to champion was a housing. That is out of the budget. That did not make it. But the natural gas ban, as I mentioned earlier, and build public renewables is in. One of the remaining sticking points between the governor and the legislature was a law banning natural gas in most new buildings. Republican lawmakers have criticized the plan. Clearly, we should be criticizing this plan. Hochul touted the law at a press conference, saying, we are going to be the first state in the nation to advance zero emissions in new homes and buildings. Under the agreed-upon language, gas hookups will be banned in new small buildings starting in 2025 and new large buildings starting in 2028. I know that Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and I are going to do a show just on this, the green energy policies in the state that are going to ultimately doom the state. The technology is just not there, folks, and we're rushing this. And it's going to cause more headache. It's going to cause more people, again, to leave or not build. You get the idea. So that did unfortunately make it in the budget. It did put money into education, like I mentioned earlier, but also these charter schools, which Governor Hochul was kind of fighting for. But it was only, I think, 14 new charter schools in the city, so nothing really, not a huge win. Again, minimum wage is set now at $17. Will increase to $17 an hour. So we talked about that. The tuition hikes at SUNY are out. Too high dollar. Now, I mentioned the Hollywood handout, $700 million. I did not mention this. Two high dollar proposals that have drawn the ire of good government groups did remain in the budget. So I mentioned Hollywood, $700 million. I'm mixed on this one because I do like horse racing. The Belmont Racetrack on Long Island will get $445 million to make renovations. And lawmakers also approved an expansion of the film tax credit, as I mentioned. So Belmont Racetrack, beautiful track. We all know, part of the Triple Crown, the last leg of the Triple Crown. $455 million of your money and my money for renovations. Oh, one other, I guess you would call it a loss for Hochul, because I believe she was supporting this, was the universal school meals. The budget contains funding to greatly expand school meals for public school students, but doesn't quite go quite as far as ensuring that all students, regardless of income, can access free meals. That's what they originally were calling for in Albany, that everybody gets them, regardless of income, regardless of if you say, hey, I can buy my kids lunch, doesn't matter. They wanted universal. That was out of the budget. We mentioned about bail reform. Now I got to take a break. We're going to talk about bail reform when we come back, so please stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we're moving fast this morning. I'm losing track of time, so stay with us. All right, let's continue our discussion of the New York State budget here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Look how beautiful it is out there on Market Street this morning. All right, I got a weird angle. All right, so we do not have an M.A. Neal Financial Services interview this morning. That'll return tomorrow with Lisa Illig-Homan. I tried to schedule something about the budget, didn't work out, and I think we have so much to talk about with the budget. We'll play that pre-recorded interview with Jim Meskimen some other time. Okay, so Albany did nothing to improve our safety, which, again, you look at the polls, you look at how good Lee Zeldin did, it's a major issue for the taxpayers, the hardworking taxpayers in New York State. Jim Quinn at the New York Post says he expected it to be bad, but that's an understatement. Forget the fact they did nothing about the discovery law, which has resulted in district attorneys' offices hemorrhaging assistant DAs and dismissing close to 70% of their cases because it's impossible to comply with the law in every case. 70% of their cases dismissed. Jim Quinn says, I thought our legislators would look at the carnage being wrought on our streets and the rampant criminal activity since these reforms took effect in 2020 and be responsible. But nope, after months of wrangling, they came up with essentially nothing. Telling you, never mind what you're seeing with your eyes. Never mind what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life. Crime is not an issue in New York. And I think he made a really good point when they give you these numbers and these statistics that, oh, we've only had, and this is in New York City, the mayor said 125 murders so far this year. That's an 8% decline, progress. But as he says, if you were being honest about crime, you compare city crime now with crime, or any, not just city, upstate as well, with crime in 2019 before the so-called criminal justice reforms took place. But see, as you know, politicians are very good at manipulating numbers to fix or to push their world view. Murders are up a staggering 44% from the same period in 2019. And this is in the city, of course, but we've talked with our local sheriffs about what these bail reform laws have done locally when it comes to crime. He said in response to these sobering numbers, The only substantive change legislators made in the law was to change the requirement that the judge set the least restrictive conditions that will reasonably assure the defendant's return to court to a requirement that the judge's condition of release must be reasonably assure the defendant's return to court. What? The change by itself will mean little because a judge still cannot consider whether the defendant poses a danger to the public or is at high risk of reoffending. And I know there's in certain cases with felony and extreme misdemeanor cases, they have a little more discretion, but that's not going to fix the overall issue, and it's not even a fix in general. A judge still cannot, except in very limited circumstances, set bail on defendants charged with non-violent felonies or misdemeanors. So what does this mean? Car thieves, drug dealers, shoplifters, pickpockets, people stealing the catalytic converters. They cannot have bail set no matter how many prior convictions they have. Unless they have, this is the only caveat, if they have an open case. But I thought he made a good point. Again, this is Jim Quinn from the New York Post, and he's saying a defendant arrested for shoplifting who has dozens of prior convictions could literally tell the judge, could you please hurry this case? Could you hurry this arraignment? Because I have to go to Macy's to steal a suit for future court appearances, and the judge could still not set bail. He could not set bail in that scenario. Now, I know that's an extreme, and I know that's giving kind of an outlandish example, but is it that outlandish? You've seen in various media reports where someone will basically thank, and while the media's there, thank the lawmakers for changing the bail reform law, so they're out and they're going to go do it again. So again, did nothing for New Yorkers' safety. We've got to keep that in mind election time, folks. I think, I know upstate's a little different, but how many times is it, well, vote the bums out, just not my bum example. Not this guy, not the guy that, guy or woman or whoever that I support. We have to have changes in Albany, and the supermajority is just making it impossible to have any substantive change to better this state, to keep us safer, to cut taxes. But back to this one last bit from Quinn. The governor was rolled yet again. Yeah, she caved, as we saw time and time again with the budget. And she caved to the hard left in her party. And once again, important legislation will be written by 3 people in a room, put into a gigantic budget bill, which has happened yesterday, and submitted to legislators with mere hours' notice. That's what already happened. That's what happened with the vote yesterday. Hundreds more people murdered. Well, we're still better than Chicago. Tens of thousands more crime victims every year. No problem. This is New York. We're woke, as Jim Quinn said. Now, he was executive district attorney in the Queens DA office, district attorney's office, where he served for 42 years. Yeah, it's all in the name of woke, to use his term, that this is all kind of a virtue signaling. But what we've done is coddle the criminals and tied the hands of our law enforcement. And when you do that, well, you see the end results. You see the crime running rampant. And unfortunately, this is something that I bring up every time that we talk about it. I feel so bad for the people that were victims of a criminal that should not have been a victim. That person should have been in jail, but instead released before the ink dried, were released and maybe recommitted that crime if it's a domestic type issue, or maybe just a brand new case. We had that happen a few years back here in our area, I remember, where someone got out on this with the bail reform and then went and beat somebody else up, or you got someone else getting robbed. So the victims that need not be victims, but it doesn't stop there. Now, this, I want to make it very clear, this is not in the budget, okay? But this is to show you where New York, specifically Albany's mindset is when we talk about public safety. So this coming from New York State politics, there's a bill, again, this is not in the budget, I don't want any confusion. There's a bill that's gaining traction that would seal criminal records. This is right now making its way through the assembly. It has stalled in the assembly, I should make that clear. But it is getting some more support. And we talked, I think, early on in the program about this, the Clean Slate Act. Carl Hasty on Thursday suggested that it could soon change the stalling of this bill, that we could start moving forward. We definitely consider clean slate before the end of session. Now, the bill has gained the support of business leaders across the state because what they're trying, and I think that's an overhyped statement. I think maybe there's some vocal business leaders, but what they're trying to suggest is it would lead to more in the workforce, more people in the workforce. Opponents have questioned whether sealing the records of criminal convictions after a number of years would be safe for workplaces and fly in the face of voters' broader concerns over crime in the last year. Well, they say they're concerned over that. Are they concerned? They should be. Voters do not want to continue to look as if we're coddling criminals. Now, in this case, you're saying, well, they serve their time or whatever and erase their records, but it still raises concerns. There's still people. Who was it? And I don't want to steal somebody's point on this. It was Will Barclay, the Assembly Minority Leader. He said, I think it's a very dangerous proposal because there are some jobs out there that you want to know some people's backgrounds. Absolutely. But it's just another larger picture item where instead of worrying about how bad the economy is and how much you and I are struggling just to make it in this state, or we're worried about our safety, instead of worrying about those, we're focused on these, to quote Jim Quinn, these woke type issues. Now, we have one more New York issue, and then we will move along. Though I did want to highlight a couple of events coming up, because we're talking about community so often on this program when we talk. That's why we are concerned about the community safety. I thought this would be a good time to highlight the Unity in the Community rally. You may have seen this advertised at various places. MC Dr. Coleman. Dr. Coleman has been holding events like this for quite some time. This is coming up on May 13th, and what a lineup that he has put together for the Twin Tiers Unity in the Community rally. It's not this Saturday. It's the Saturday after 2 to 3 right here in Centerway Square in Corning. When you're walking by to go to Centerway, you can see into the studios. I won't be here, but you can see in. Georgia Verdier is going to be there, president of the Elmira Corning branch of the NAACP. Hey, Mayor Bill Boland, our first guest on the program on TV. Mayor Bill Boland will be there. Dan Mandel, who we had on recently, mayor of Elmira. New York State Senator Tom O'Mara will be there. Dr. Carol Wright, the president and executive director of Corning Museum of Glass. Dr. Ruffin, director of community affairs in the Office of Racial Equality and Social Unity from Corning Incorporated. Dr. William Mullaney, president of SUNY Corning Community College. Reverend Connie Siffert, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, president, League of Women Voters in Steuben and Chemung counties, and a pastor of First United Methodist Church in Corning. Sheriff James Allard. Jim Allard is going to be there from Steuben County, and Chemung County Sheriff Bill Schramm will be there as well. So that's coming up not this Saturday, next Saturday, right here in Corning. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Gas stove ban for new buildings. As this person said, I think it's a great point. Looks like there will be no new restaurants built in New York after 2028. There's no way to cook efficiently without gas. Completely stupid. We're going to see, unfortunately, a lot of very stupid decisions coming from pushing these green energy policies, and it's going to hurt us all. It's not just going to hurt businesses, it's going to hurt individuals. So various green energy policies that are being pushed by the supermajority, the far left in Albany, are just going to be another burden on top of other burdens that, again, unfortunately, leave so many to decide that it's time to head out of the state. Now, this could be some good news, though it is a little bit ambiguous. This is Lee Zeldin, of course, who we all know did a wonderful job in the gubernatorial race, kept it very close, and a lot of it was on running for public safety, right? Running in the name of public safety. If you recall, there's even by his house. Remember, there's like a shooting by his house, gunfire by his house. So he was very vocal about the need for safety, the need for public safety measures in New York State. He says he's keeping an eye on running against Gillibrand. I think he's level-headed about it, because he is saying, it would be a tough row to hoe, because you've got presidential year, you've got a lot. It's going to be tough for a Republican to win in New York at any level like that, governor or especially in this case Senate. So you got to be smart about it, right? He said, we'll keep an eye on the race. If we did run, it would be an extremely competitive race. Now, the former Long Island congressman received nearly 47% of the vote against Hochul last November, the best performance by a Republican gubernatorial candidate in the solidly blue state in 2 decades. We know since that time he's launched a PAC, a political action committee. What he said later, he said, it was something that I was giving no thought to, meaning running against Gillibrand. But she was trying to fundraise. And the best way to fundraise in the first quarter of 2023 was to speak about a viable opponent, Zeldin said. Oh, that is an interesting point. I wasn't even thinking about it, but Gillibrand saying, well, we could have Zeldin. Because remember, she had that fundraising email that was, well, we could have former Governor Cuomo could be running against me. She's just trying to pad the coffers, if you will. We'll see how the race shapes up. He acknowledged that there's even more of a Democrat-favored turnout in a presidential election year, so that makes it very tough. He's being level-headed about it. We know earlier this week that AOC said that she has no intention to primary Gillibrand. So, and I haven't heard anything more about the Cuomo rumor. Again, I think that was more Gillibrand saying, hey, how can we raise some money? We could scare some people. Now, we're going to get away from New York State politics for just a moment. I know what I did want to mention. Because we've been talking about mental health. We've been talking about helping our community. And I received this from Steuben County. I was not aware. May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So Steuben County, I'm sure Chemung and many counties throughout the state are recognizing and naming May as National Mental Health Awareness Month. It says here, alarming data shows suicide is now the second leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds. Second leading cause, with teenagers experiencing a 17% increase in the use of anxiety medicines since 2010. That's what local officials said. Arlie Jeffords, adult clinic program coordinator, said mental health issues are manageable with the appropriate help and support. And that's why I wanted to mention it in helping to promote National Mental Health Awareness Month. If you are having any issues whatsoever, they ask you to call this number. This is the number that Arlie Jeffords gave. Again, if you are experiencing kind of national health emergency or just want to talk and seek help, find out more, that is the number right there. And we give kudos to Steuben County for being, and for all the counties. This is just the first one I received. I know Chemung will, for speaking out on this, as we've talked on the program with numerous people about the impact of the COVID shutdown, especially on young people. We learned recently that the teachers union having those conversations and why the lockdowns or the shutdowns for the schools took so long. You think of the irreparable damage that's done to our young people, and then you see those startling, terrifying statistics. Second leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds. Tragic. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. We're back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. CNN did a big piece, and we're getting away from New York politics for a moment, about the deadly rise of fentanyl, something we've discussed way too frequently on this program. Nearly 70,000 people in the U.S. died of drug overdoses that involved fentanyl in 2021. That's almost a 4-fold increase over the last 5 years. The reason I mention it is we know a lot of the drugs coming from over the border, and we've learned, I believe yesterday we started talking about this, but the Biden administration is going to send 1,500 U.S. troops to the Mexico border as Title 42 deadline nears, as Fox News here is reporting. 1,500 active duty U.S. troops. But aren't they making it very clear that they're not in any kind of law enforcement capacity? They will serve for 90 days in mostly administrative and transport roles to free up law enforcement and border patrol. Of course, we know that will lead to a new surge of migrant. We learned this from MSN.com. U.S. officials are looking at or expecting illegal crossings to surpass 10,000 per day, excuse me, as soon as Title 42 ends on May the 11th. Now, also as an update from yesterday's program, before we take another short break, that is the man that they finally caught, the mass shooting suspect. That's the picture in an article from the New York Post. Francisco Oropeza in custody after that 4-day manhunt. A sick story, a sick individual, alleged sick individual, I guess you have to say. The alleged gunman, 38 years old, was arrested in the city of Conroe. I guess he was cowering underneath some laundry in a home. This is going to raise many concerns because he has been kind of tied in with the border surge that we'll see starting May 11th after Title 42 is over. He had been deported 4 times. Wow. So that's an update from the story. They did finally, after the 4-day manhunt, catch him. We give a big thank you to our law enforcement putting their lives on the danger. A guy that could allegedly do this to his neighbors. I'm sure they were on edge, that law enforcement community in that area. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. When we come back, we've got a couple of presidential updates, I guess you could say. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We have a lot to wrap up on here because we just have one more segment after this. Biden is going to campaign using the term freedom a lot. You know, when you saw his rollout video, not in person, it wasn't live. His rollout video, it was to save democracy. Well, the same kind of mindset is going to be used when he's going to be your last bastion for freedom, essentially. In his campaign launch video, he used freedom 6 times. What a Democrat strategist, of course, anonymous, so keep it with as many grains of salt as you'd like. It's pretty clear the strategy here is going to be Republicans are coming after our freedoms and our ability to do X, Y, and Z. Those are typically talking points Republicans use. So we are playing on their turf and winning. So how the Hill is not twisting this, but how they're saying it is, Republicans normally say, you know, the Biden administration is going after your guns. They're going to try to take away your Second Amendment rights. This Democrat strategist from the Hill is trying to suggest that they're going to flip the script and suggest the Republicans are the ones taking away, not on guns, but taking away your rights. So keep that in mind. We're just preparing for, it's going to be a long run to next November. Now, President Trump, former President Trump, is considering skipping one or more of the GOP primary debates. Now, I know the Republicans have been working behind the scenes to kind of tighten some things up and see. There's been many issues in the past of where we hold, what media outlets we hold the debates with, who the moderators are. They numerous times have not been friendly to Republicans and definitely not friendly to the lead candidate. But back to this point, Trump's advisors have pointed out that he's got a commanding lead. So why take the stage and risk that lead? Why would we debate? That would be stupid to go out there with that kind of lead, one Trump advisor said. Now, the other side of that coin is, yeah, but is he really going to want to give DeSantis and whoever else is on running on a ticket, whoever running on during the primaries, just that free time to really go after him, to tout their own records? So he's going to let, this is what one quote-unquote insider said, so he's going to let Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence get up there and get all the attention? No. I don't know. I mean, it gets him, in his defense, a lot of attention right now on the topic. I'll be curious, because I'm interested that he's going to go to CNN and do that town hall. I know many people's mindset is he's going to just blister them. Probably. But I've always been a firm proponent of, as Republicans, saying, guys, we got to pick friendlier outlets to do these debates. We got to pick fair moderators, because you can see the stark contrast between a Republican primary debate and a Democrat primary debate when it comes to the media. The media is propping up one side no matter who the candidate is, unless there's one candidate in there that's they don't like. And then Republicans are always trying to demean and go after them. We saw that frequently, not just in the primary last go around with Trump way back, but also when he was facing Hillary, and of course Joe Biden. So we got to take a short break, though, again. Then we'll be back. We'll wrap things up. Stay with us. One last thing. Trump opens up to a 36% lead over DeSantis in the new 2024 Republican poll. That's coming from a CBS News YouGov poll. All right, now we'll take that short break. Stay with us. We have covered a lot today here on Frankly Speaking. I thank you so much for joining us. One last thing. You want to talk about perfect timing. I mean, just complete luck. Democrat Congresswoman just happened to have her First Republic stock sold and then bought J.P. Morgan right before the sale. But we're told it's a coincidence. Let me take a side note before we tell you more about this story. Thank you to people like Congressman Nick Langworthy and others that are signing on and saying enough with the stock trading if you are in Congress because there's too many improprieties. According to financial disclosures reportedly filed on April 28th, Frankel is her name, Louise Frankel, Florida Democrat, sold between $1,001 and $15,000. I love that that's the window. No, it's $1,001 all the way to $15,000. We just don't know where it fell in between that. In First Republic stock on March 16th. And then happened to buy somewhere between $1,001 and $15,000 in JP Morgan stock on March 22nd. So you would say, boy, that's lucky. I wish I had that kind of luck. That's like hitting the lotto. But she wants you to know that her account is managed independently by a money manager who buys and sells stock at his discretion. Okie doke. Do you believe her? Again, that's why it goes back, and that's why I know Congressman Langworthy has been speaking out on it. It raises too many red flags. It raises too many issues, and something needs to be done about it with trading stock in Congress. Okay, that's it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. If there's something I missed throughout the day or something you want to comment on, I can maybe bring it up on the program tomorrow. If you just want to talk about what we discussed today, I would love to hear from you. There's the phone number. You can text or call. Please leave a voicemail if you do call. And there's our email. We've been receiving a lot of great correspondence back and forth, so I do appreciate that. Tomorrow on the program, Lisa Illig-Holman. She's going to join us. She's running for Corning City Council. We're looking forward to talking with her, talk about her campaign, what she thinks about the what's happening in Corning. So we'll be talking with her as well. And I think that covers everything. I'll let you know tomorrow on the program who we have on Friday and all of next week. We are booked up for quite some time. I will get somebody on to talk about the budget very soon. But again, reach out to me. This has been Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you to the Hesselsons for the beautiful Hesselson studio, and thank you to M.A. Neal Financial Services for sponsoring our interview section and me hijacking that interview section today to talk about the New York State budget. And thank you to Culligan Water. This has been Frankly Speaking. Join us tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. right here on Big Fox. I look forward to it.